Good morning, everyone. This video came out of Montreal yesterday, and this gentleman is not wearing a mask. The police got called by the Tim Hortons staff, so I read. And well, this happened. Here we go.
Vous trouvez pas ça exagéré? C'est pas exagéré, votre affaire? Pour une...
So they ended up arresting him and restraining him and removing him from the place. Another third cop shows up who wasn't wearing a mask. There's other people in the video who aren't wearing masks. It seems like an overstep. It seems like this person will have some legal recourse for being assaulted by police officers here. I think that, and maybe this is just Guelph, I don't know if the bylaws are written any differently, but I believe that there are exemptions, and I believe that you do not need to prove to anyone, under any circumstances, what medical issues you have that prevent you from wearing a mask. Whether that's just you haven't checked with your doctor to make sure it's safe for you, which is a legitimate concern, because wearing a mask isn't safe for everyone, right? As set out by the fact that there are exemptions in all of the public orders I've seen. And the bylaws I've seen too, there are exemptions. Often children under 12 are exempt in the bylaws. So it's very jarring to see this coming out of Montreal. Not good. Not good. It's also very, very jarring to see this coming out of the Deputy Prime Minister's Twitter feed. She says, registered non-profit organizations that are Black Canadian focused can apply for up to $100,000 for capital projects to improve their workplaces and community space. More information here. I feel like there's been a long and continuous push in Canada, and I experienced this. I went through school in the 90s, post-secondary in the 2000s, early 2000s, and then I was working since 2005. And the idea that you could say to one race, here's a group thing that we're doing for you, brown Canadians or Asian Canadians or Black Canadians, would seem to imply that you also needed to offer it for everyone. And so why not just remove the Black modifier or the brown modifier or the Asian modifier or the native modifier? Why not just offer it for everyone under these circumstances, right? But this Black Lives Matter thing is pushing politicians and policymakers to be more overt about including Black people. And that is racist. It is racist. It comes across as racist. This is racist. Make no mistake about this. This is racism. You can't just fund one race because they're a race. That is the definition of racism. If somebody is in need for a capital project, then they should apply for the capital project thing. And if the government wants to give money to capital projects, wonderful. Why does it need to be for Black Canadian capital projects? I don't understand the push. How does this help solve racism? Explain it to me, because to me it looks racist, right? That's the point here. And I hope there's backlash against this. I hope that people don't like this. The comments aren't very supportive. But this is happening across everything. This is happening across everything. I'm in discussions with the school board now. I'm compiling how difficult this problem is to solve with the school board, because if you are trying to solve a problem with the school board, you need to understand that it's not a quick phone call to make sure everybody understands that they're wrong, because they don't, and they don't care. First, they don't agree that they're wrong, and two, they don't care that I think that what they're saying is racist. So I think people should know that. I think people should be aware of that, but this is happening at a much bigger scale. If your HR department is forcing you to take anti-racist training, they're implying that you're racist. Are you racist? If you're racist, go to the training. If you're not racist, tell them I don't need that training. Thanks very much. You comply, you're agreeing that you're a racist, right? And this is the government being racist. I think that the shoehorning of race into absolutely everything is not helping. And I think that people who circle back around and try and make the case that it is helping don't make a very good case. I'll say that. Here is going into politics, because that's what this is all about. The Speaker of the House is saying the House of Commons has been recalled and will sit Monday, July 20th at noon. For more info on the recall, go here. And what could this be about? What could this be about? I'm not sure what this is about. The handy link doesn't really give a lot of meat on what's happening. It gives historical perspective and the recall procedure, etc., and what everybody's responsibility is. It says when the House stands adjourned during a session, the standing orders provide the means by which the House may be recalled prior to the date originally specified. Blah 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 blah. So it's not tomorrow we're going to talk about this. So usually the recess was scheduled by the NDP and the Liberals. We had 4 sitting days over the summer, and I mean, we just sat, So this wee scandal is forcing this sitting. Maybe this is important government business would bring back the House, and it looks like this is a full House recall. It looks like this is everybody's expected to come. So, I mean, who knows? There were people speculating, maybe Trudeau is going to prorogue Parliament. And what does prorogation mean? It just means the end of a session. Here it is. I'll read this here, the mechanism. A parliamentary session lasts until a prorogation, after which, without ceremony in recent years, one or both chambers of the legislature cease all legislative business until the Governor-General or Lieutenant Governor issues a proclamation calling for a new session to begin. So when... I feel like I should define prorogation a little bit better. So here's a better definition of prorogation. Okay, prorogation is the end of a parliamentary session in the Parliament of Canada and the parliaments of its provinces and territories. Governor General will deal with the federal, and the lieutenant governors will deal with the provinces. Okay, it differs from a recess or adjournment, which do not end a session, and from a complete dissolution of Parliament, which ends both the session and the Parliament, requiring an election for the House of Commons in the federal Parliament, singular legislative chamber of the unicameral provincial parliaments. I know I said that wrong, but whatever, doesn't matter. It is, according to the Constitution of Canada, the Canadian monarch's royal prerogative to prorogue the legislatures, though it is usually done for the federal parliament by the sovereign's federal representative, the Governor-General of Canada. This is exclusively done on the advice of the relevant Prime Minister who holds confidence in the elected chamber of Parliament. A parliamentary session lasts until prorogation. I just read that, okay? And so, this is done by the Governor-General. And here are 2 recent examples of Stephen Harper proroguing. Why do I think this maybe has some kind of weight? Maybe because here are the 2 recent examples from 2008 and then 2009. A prorogation of Parliament took place on December 4th, 2008, with Prime Minister Stephen Harper advising Governor-General Michel Jean to do so after the opposition Liberals and New Democrat parties formed a coalition with the support of the Bloc Québécois party and threatened to vote non-confidence in the sitting minority government, precipitating a parliamentary dispute. Okay, so in 2008, Harper prorogued to avoid a confidence vote. Okay, that's what he did. And then in 2009, Harper again advised the Governor-General to prorogue Parliament on December 30th, 2009. The Prime Minister stated that this was to keep Parliament in recess for the duration of the Olympics, to be held in Vancouver, British Columbia in 2010. The move was, however, suspected by opposition members of Parliament to be a way for Harper to avoid ongoing investigations into the Afghan detainees affair. Okay, so with weed blowing up, prorogation solves lots of problems. It stops the investigations, it stops any kind of confidence vote, and it puts Parliament on hold until such time as the Governor-General calls them back. And who is Canada's Governor-General? Julie Payette. And what happened here? What happened here from 2017 when she became, I think she became Governor-General in 2018, or no, maybe 2017. I can't remember the exact year, I apologize. But regardless, here is iPolitics reporting in 2017. PMO has no comment on Julie Payette's expunged 2011 assault charge. So it must have been 2017 because this is in 2017. Okay, here we go. Governor-General designate Julie Payette was charged with second-degree assault while living in Maryland in 2011, a charge she calls unfounded and which she has since had expunged, and about which the Prime Minister's office is refusing to confirm it had prior knowledge. Quote, "We've got no comment on this," Kate Purchase, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's Director of Communications, said in an email. She would not confirm whether Trudeau had been aware of the almost 60-year-old criminal charge relating to an alleged assault, a charge that was ultimately dropped before he announced that Payette would replace David Johnston as Canada's new Governor General. I scroll down. In a routine background check, iPolitics found the record of the assault charge. The record shows Payette was arrested and charged under Section 3203 of the Maryland Code with second-degree assault, which can carry a jail term of up to 10 years and fines of up to $2,500. The charge was dropped 2 weeks later. The alleged offense for which she was charged took place on November 24th, 2011, in Piney Point, Maryland, where Payette was living with her then-husband, retired RCAF pilot William Flynn. According to a source, Flynn was the victim of the alleged assault, but that has not been confirmed. Efforts to reach Flynn for comment over the weekend went unanswered. I scroll down again. Payette and Flynn split shortly after the November 2011 incident, and Maryland St. Mary's County Circuit Court records showed 2 family court cases filed May 22nd, 2013 and June 26, 2013, both of which are now closed. Payette requested to withdraw the motion on June 13th. It was only dismissed without prejudice on June 28th, 2017, just a little more than 2 weeks before she was officially announced as Johnston's successor. So this happened in 2013 and got cleaned up just before she became Governor General. And she's the person, and here's a CBC News article about the whole thing, and she's the person who's going to take Trudeau's advice and prorogue Parliament and then wait for his advice to bring it back. So there's that. I think that this is interesting, right? I think that this holds some water. Either that or Trudeau's going to step down and hand it over to Freeland. I can't see that. I don't think so yet. Unless there's more to this wee scandal than we know, and he's just getting out of Dodge early, which could happen too. I don't know. Because this wee scandal, like I said, it keeps giving. It's easy to understand, and it makes people angry. And it looks like we's blowing up as well. And I'll get to that in just a minute. Here is Pundit Class, and he says, Democracy Watch's letter to the RCMP Commissioner Brenda Lucki details the factual evidence supporting multiple criminal charges against Justin Trudeau and others in his government. I said that I'm not a lawyer. I'm not even a part-time lawyer. I feel like if I fell into it, I'd get really into it, and I don't have the time. So I don't go looking for laws and how to apply them and blah, blah, blah. But these guys, democracywatch.ca, put together a dossier, which is just a collection of links and evidence and proof. Here's 4 pages of public evidence put together by these guys. This is the full letter. Link is in the description if you want to read it. I'm just going to read the, not conclusion, but the key questions and the law as it applies here. And this 5-part test for corruption that was set out by the Supreme Court of Canada in a ruling, which is precedent setting, right? Like if you have a ruling, this is what constitutes this, and it's recent. It's not like we're going back to the 1800s, right? Not even early 1900s. It's 2006, and obviously we're 2020. But my goodness, there's a lot here, so it's very interesting that we're having this meeting tomorrow, right? I'll be watching that. That should be interesting and fun. Okay, anyway, here's the democracywatch.ca's letter to Brenda Lucki, the RCMP commissioner, about the criminality and the law as it applies here. Okay, here we go. Under Section 118 of the Criminal Code, RSC 1985, C46, official is defined as anyone who A, holds an office, B, is appointed or elected to discharge a public duty. It is clear from this definition that Section 118 applies to the Prime Minister, the staff of the Prime Minister's office, all of whom he appoints, the clerk of the Privy Council, whom the Governor and Council, appoints under Section 125 of the Public Service Employment Act, PSEA, SC 2003, Chapter 22, subsection 12 and 13, and to other members of the senior staff of the Office of the Privy Council, along with deputy ministers, associate deputy ministers, deputy heads, and associate deputy heads, and equivalent positions, whom the Governor in General, the Governor in Council appoints, not Governor in General, under Section 127.1 of PSEA. See that section here. So this is how people are appointed. So proving that it falls in line with Section 118 of people who hold office or are appointed or elected to discharge public duties. Back to this. Section 122 of the Criminal Code, which can be seen here, prohibits fraud or a breach of trust by an official. 5-part test for providing a breach of trust was set out by the Supreme Court of Canada, paragraph 58 of its ruling in R.V. Boulanger, 2006. 1, the accused is an official. 2, the accused was acting in connection with the duties of his or her office. 3, the accused breached the standard of responsibility and conduct demanded of him or her by the nature of the office. 4, the accused conduct represented a serious and marked departure from the standards expected of an individual in the accused's position of public trust. And 5, the accused acted with the intention to use his or her public office for a purpose other than the public good, for example, a dishonest, partial, corrupt, or oppressive purpose. Parts 1, and they go through how this applies, but I'm not going to go through all of that. This is like a 10-page letter. It's worth it. You should read it. Link is in the description. But I think that it is very interesting that we're not really seeing a lot of movement on this. And even more interesting, here are the relevant documents. Even more interesting that Lucky's not. Well, not to say that she would announce an investigation into Trudeau, but it looks like there's no indication of anything happening there. And with respect to the meeting for tomorrow at the House of Commons, the recall of Parliament, maybe that's to take responsibility and say, yeah, okay, we've made these mistakes and have a surprise budget and confidence vote and maybe snap election. I mean, there's so many things that could be happening, but with this context, who knows? It could go any which way. I feel like tomorrow will come and it will be anticlimactic. That's what I think. 37 senators, I've got 2 more stories today. 37 senators demand open, transparent inquiry into Nova Scotia shooting. Remember the Nova Scotia shooting? Remember all the money that was paid and everybody said a regular bank would never give a Brinks ticket to somebody like that guy, and how did he get that much money from Brinks directly? Like, the only way to do that is if you're connected to the RCMP. That's how the RCMP pay their informants. Right? There's lots of questions and nobody's given any answers. None. It's really, it's quite something. The RCMP is more concerned about racism in its ranks that didn't exist a week before. And then Miss Lucky and Gail had a conversation. And Miss Lucky now sees it how Gail sees it. And there's rampant racism everywhere. And that's what they're concerned about. Not paying $475,000 to the biggest mass shooter in Canadian history. They're not worried about that. They're worried about the racism. Don't you be racist. Back to this. More than 36 Canadian senators are calling on the federal and Nova Scotia governments to launch a fully open, transparent, and comprehensive inquiry into the mass shootings that left 22 people dead in the province in April. I don't think fully open and transparent mean what the newspapers think it means, or the government has changed the definition of those words, and they keep saying open and transparent, but they don't mean what we mean when we say open and transparent. It's like, no, I'm not going to come up with comparisons, but everything Trudeau has done has not been open and transparent. Okay? Nothing he's done has been open and transparent, despite him saying that a lot. Back to this. In an open letter published Saturday, 37 senators from across the country said an investigation is urgently needed to better understand what happened and why. Quote, Nova Scotians and Canadians need to know what happened and did not happen, and what might be done to identify and act on the warning signs that might help to prevent such tragedies in the future. What? That's soft language. If that was a sword, it would look like this. It's like, I'm going to get you with this poorly worded milk toast. Ugh, awful. That's terrible. What may have happened, maybe, kind of, sort of, maybe. Anyway, back to this. The senators also stressed that any inquiry must use a feminist lens to be able to fully uncover what led to the massacre. A feminist lens? You can only look at this through a feminist lens. Okay. Why a feminist lens? Wasn't it a man who did the shooting? How can a feminist lens help us, senators? I'm just, okay. Like, what kind of crazy... Can we do it through... Never mind. Back to this. It is not the first time senators have demanded more action from Ottawa and Halifax on the matter. Senators from Nova Scotia sent 2 letters in June to Federal Public Safety Minister Bill Blair and Nova Scotia Justice Minister Mark Fury, asking that a joint federal-provincial probe be launched into the killings. Fury said earlier this month that technicalities were causing delays, but that the government were working day and night to bring an inquiry together. There's legalities and technicalities that our legal teams are reviewing and finalizing in the drafting and relevant documents, Fury said on July 2nd. Today is July 19th. Declining to offer details, that's what's taking the time. In their letter Saturday was July 18th, the senator said not launching the inquiry was fueling speculation among Canadians. That That resulting innuendo and gossip puts the public trust in jeopardy, not only to those who strive their best to protect and serve, but also in those who are responsible for our public safety, they wrote. The letter was sent to Bill Blair and Fury, as well as federal ministers David Lametti and Mariam Monsef and Kelly Regan, Nova Scotia's minister responsible for the Advisory Council on the Status of Women Act. A spokeswoman for the Public Safety Canada, Mary Liz Power, said in an email Saturday that Blair had been in close contact with Fury on the issue. Our governments are working together to ensure that we take all lessons to be learned from this tragedy, and both are considering all possible tools and avenues of investigation. All possible lessons to be learned? You can't learn anything unless you know what happened, and nobody knows what happened. Nobody's heard anything official from anybody anywhere. And these people use these tragedies to push their political means, meaning they use the Nova Scotia shooting to justify the gun ban, the gun reclassification, and the guy got his guns illegally anyway. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. Last story for today, and I'm at 20 minutes. Of course I am. Kielberger and they were in a precarious financial situation regardless of COVID-19, and that's an interesting thing to note. So this is the last one for today. Here we go. The idea that We Charity was uniquely capable of executing the government's $912 million student charity program is challenged by an analysis of their audited financial statements by Charity Intelligence, CI, an independent charity watchdog group that helps donors, quote, give intelligently and have impact with generosity. CI's legitimacy as a neutral authority on the charitable sector was recognized by none other than We Charity itself, who previously used its CI rating to challenge Canada Land's investigation. The information shared, quote, the information shared by Canada Land in its questioning about the budgeting data and numbers is incorrect. Charity Intelligence Canada awarded We Charity a perfect 4-star rating. When the pandemic began, We Charity promptly laid off the majority of its workforce. Media reports assumed that this was a direct result of COVID-19 with its obvious impacts on donations and live events. But in an interview with Canada Land, CI's managing director, Kate Bahan, shares information from WE's own audited financial statements that tell a different story, one of an organization that appeared to already be in a crisis and making strange financial transactions when COVID hit to anyone who bothered to look. So Jesse Brown is Jay, and I just go through some highlights here. It's quite a lot of it, but link is in the description if you want to read all of it. I don't go through every bit. Okay, so Jesse says, your practice is based on numbers. Is it based on going through their audited financials line by line? What is it in their audited financial statements that raised concerns for you? You could see the real estate holdings, says Kate, right there on the balance sheet. You could see the properties. This wasn't a charity that had a lot of cash. It was investing heavily in real estate. The concern was also the leverage. When you build a hospice, when you build a homeless shelter, you will go into debt very often, and you will have a long-term mortgage with regularly scheduled payments. But all of We Charity's debt was short-term, revolving demand loans at the beck and call of the banks. But it wasn't the amount of debt on these properties, and it was always changing. So we always looked at the debt levels. And then in 2018, the auditor flagged for the first time that We Charity was in breach of its bank covenants. That is a massive, massive red flag. I've never seen that on any other charity in its audited financial statements. So Jesse asks, for those of us who are less financially literate, when you say they're in breach of their bank covenants, they're racking up big debts to the bank while they're buying major pieces of property. Am I getting that right? Kate, it's leveraged. They're not using cash. Some people live a certain lifestyle and you only see one side of the balance sheet. You don't see how much debt that person has. We Charity has the big offices, has the Global Learning Center, had all the assets, properties on Queen Street, but these were all backed. Its lending practices were getting close to the max. Kind of like your credit card. If you've got a credit card limit of $10,000, these guys were always at $9,500. It was always pushing the limits. So they have to go to the bank every year, renegotiate this loan. God forbid the bank says no this year. It's kind of like a high wire act. It just isn't seen in charities. So we is different on so many fronts. Your analogy to a soup kitchen or hospice, those are facilities that directly do charitable work. This Toronto Sun's Brian Lilly reported that we quickly acquired $38.7 million in Toronto real estate. How much money were they spending each year on their actual charitable works instead of on their headquarters and things like that? That's not disclosed, says Kate, so I don't see that. Let's say they bought a building on Queen Street for $3 million to help children in Ethiopia. Then they declare that the property is for that overseas work. Well, we're analysts, not auditors, she says. Scroll down. It was okay. So Jesse asks for any other concerns, and she describes an app that was sold that was created by We365, which no longer exists, and it was sold to We Charity for $1, and all the debts incurred in creating this app don't exist anymore because they now belong to We Charity. It just absorbed those debts, right? So Jesse says, that's significant. She said, no, it's not. We're talking about a $265,000 transaction at a $60 million charity. Let's focus on the $4.9 million debt that We Charity has to pay the banks in May 2020, and then another $4.3 million due at the end of October. Let's focus on the big numbers. And he says, let's focus on them. Were those dates determined before the pandemic? Were they in that kind of financial trouble before COVID? And Kate says, yes, that's what I've been sort of jumping up and down on the government's due diligence. Before you give them an agreement to distribute $912 million, look at the board of directors. Did We Charity inform the government that its board had resigned or was replaced just weeks before, and that there was a gap in governance and oversight of the charity? And if you read the audited financial statements, there it is in black and white. We Charity is in breach of its covenants. Oh, and by the way, it has no board. And then this is the last bit here. Jesse says, their argument has been, if you look at the right way, overall, the charity comes out on top. Overall, the charity is benefiting from this relationship. Is that true? And Kate says, the level of disclosure in their audited financial statements does not allow me to verify the claim. And he says, you don't have the information you would need to say, yeah, that looks right. Kate, what it does say is that in the audited financial statement is not that Me2We donates to We Charity, but that Me2We contributes to We Charity. Jesse asks, what's the difference? Kate, a donation is money. A contribution could be time, money, or goods. So if you donate 4 hours of your time and you're paid $25 an hour, you've donated $100, right? You see? But that $100 doesn't exist. It's not cash, but they're trading on it, or they're counting it in their contributions, right? Back to this. So when We Charity pays the Kielburgers private company, they pay cash. But when their private company pays the charity, it's a mixture of money, time, and other benefits, and we don't know the mix. Is that correct? That's correct. Jesse, back to the board of directors. We have said that the former board members were almost done their 5-year terms, and we wanted a refresh. Is that not a credible explanation? If a charity, says Kate, were to take the strategic decision to radically replace its entire governance structure, that needs to be signaled to the donors and corporate sponsors well ahead. That needs to be posted on a website. Everybody needs to know what's going on, and that isn't a surprise to find out on Twitter that the chairman of the board resigned in March, and since the chair of the board resigned, that doesn't jive well with their story. So you have an unprecedented turnover in governance that was not signaled, and when you have a scandal or a crisis at an organization, it's the chairman that steps up and testifies in front of Congress. It's the board chair who steps up and takes the mic. And now we go into a crisis with a rookie slate of directors. And I was talking about this before, when this happened, that their whole board was replaced. So not only is We Charity, it seems like that $8 million liability would be taken care of in the $900 million loan, right? But now that there's no loan and We's restructuring, and they owe a lot of promises, and if not promises, money to the bank, right? Man, it's interesting. I don't know what's going to happen. But it seems like something's going to happen tomorrow, maybe, or we'll look for it, and it'll be Justin Trudeau wanted to say everybody did a great job. Who knows? I have no idea, but they had the shortest amount of time to ever be recalled, or to be allowed to be recalled to Parliament. Everybody's got to get flights back. There's not many flights back to Ottawa because of the pandemic, etc. And man, I mean, it's so interesting what's going on, but I still think there's no real political way out of this. When you look at the numbers, if it's not Justin Trudeau, there's a lot of people who are quite happy with NDP, Green, very far left style leadership. And maybe that's because I live in Guelph, and Guelph is a very left town, but I think if there were an election held tomorrow, if Justin Trudeau were either the head of the Liberal Party or if it was Freeland, I think if an election were held tomorrow, they'd probably win. And I hate that I think that, but who are they going to vote for? Who else are they going to vote for? Right? The masses are saying, oh man, we're in the middle of a crisis. You're darn right we're in the middle of a crisis. Are you watching this? This guy's just not wearing a mask in Tim Hortons, and he's being tackled to the ground. This is a crisis. You're darn right it's a crisis. But it's not the crisis most people think it is. And they will gladly continue to vote for this. They will gladly continue to encourage this because that guy's not wearing a mask. Didn't you see? He's putting everybody at risk. It's incredible. It's incredible, the misinformation out there. And it's incredible how upset people get when you call them out on it on Twitter and provide links to mask studies. Do you know that they use a mask study? This is like 3 different people have sent me this mask study that uses trends in mask wearing to prove that masks work. They looked at trends in Italy, New York, and one other place, maybe Wuhan, to show that mask wearing versus no mask wearing saves lives. And they just slap on a bunch of lives. Do you know how many lives? 66,000 lives. Saved 66,000 lives. I think it was referenced twice or 3 times in the article that I read. Right there, I was like, come on. Are you joking me? You're just pulling numbers out of your... It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous what's going on. And people need to stand up and say, you are wrong, and here's why you're wrong. And you have to play their game. You have to say their magic words, because otherwise you're ignored. This is racist, by the way. Racist. Completely and totally racist. The Canadian government is racist. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out SpeakingMoistly.co. I'm back with Greg on Tuesday. I hope, if everything works out technology-wise and everything. I think it will. And have a wonderful, wonderful